All right. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of the Cowboys Game Plan. Depth Chart Review 3. But before we get into that, let's kind of give our viewers our point of view on how this season ended, man. It's crazy how fast 18 weeks can go by, and it's crazy of how slow and how torturous it may have felt at times during this Cowboys season when you were watching this Cowboys defense that we had. Just what a horrible ride we were on. Our offense, one of the top 3 offenses in the league. Your quarterback playing out of his mind, wide receivers playing out of their minds. You had an offensive line that, even with pieces put together at times, it played very well. A running back who came in on a very minimum deal who had a great season. And then on the opposite side of the ball, you happen to be the worst defense you could be, historically, seasonally, like whatever you may call it. But you happen to be one of the worst defenses you could possibly provide for that kind of offense and what kind of talent and numbers they were producing on that side. So I'll kind of kick it off to you, but Matt Eberflus, they've been talking about him, right? And we're talking about how the timeline after these press conferences has been about 10 to 12 days. And, this whole situation of why is it taking so long, or why? I mean, I get that you want to evaluate and go through your processes, but you're going to see a lot of teams start turning over on their coaches pretty quick here, or teams that didn't make the playoffs or anything like that. Do you know for any reason why they may be taking this time, or is it still that gut feeling that you talked about from last time of you think that he may stick around?
Well, it's the fact that they say, and I don't know if that was a direct quote by somebody or not, but just the fact that they say it's 10 or 12 days to evaluate this really, really scares me, because that's just enough time to let things mellow out and die down and then start building it back up to keep this guy. There is no reason on earth that this should even have to be something that gets questioned. I mean, I'm sure there are steps that have to be taken for, the end of the season, exit interviews, and everything else that goes into that. But it's crazy to me that this is something that's going to take that much time and evaluation, unless they're just saying that, so that it seems fair and it's not a snap decision, or maybe they want to kind of look around and see where they could potentially be moving to as far as a coach may be concerned. But to say, we're going to take 2 weeks to evaluate this. I mean, we had 18 weeks of football to do that, and there's been no improvement on the defense, nothing consistent. There's only a couple of bright spots on our defense, and I'd be more concerned about getting those guys to return rather than taking 2 weeks to evaluate the coaching staff. So that's just really surprising to me. But like I said, that does kind of reinforce my original thought that Matt Eberflus may return next year.
Yeah, if Matt Eberflus comes back, I mean, this isn't looking good. It's not the way that we want to start our offseason. The kind of offseason we want to start with is on that defensive side, we want to start fully fresh. And we do not want that guy to return. We need some of the players that were on this defense that he brought over to not return. I get that there's a lot of Cowboys media or some people on X and all that. I mean, I'm not saying they're giving him grace, but they're saying pretty much he was not set up for success, right? And I get that, and I get that kind of thing. And Jerry kind of hinted to it, and I'm looking for the quote here, but this has been built up over, he says, 5 to 6 years, right? This Cowboys defense has been kind of just not, it's been kind of neglected. They've kind of just been putting bits and pieces together and tried just to get enough star power there to just have like a top 20, top 15 defense. And then on the offensive side, right, have the best offense that they can have, because they believe that offense wins championships, right?
But do you feel that's a valid excuse? The fact that this is a defense that has no retention and has had, coaching turnover 4 years in a row. Do you feel like that validates the Matt Eberflus angle?
No, not at all. What's happening with this defense is they're making an excuse for not hitting on their draft picks. That's what's happening. So instead of like admitting that, hey, we've missed in this department, like, hey, we have like not done very well at drafting defensive guys, they're instead saying, well, we kind of neglected it. We've kind of just not really kind of put the money out there, which is also true.
Well, look at the depth chart. Look where they're drafting and picking people up at. They're not prioritizing defense in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, they're not. And I mean, you can look back at it, but even Mozzie Smith, right? Let's take him as an example. Total miss, right? And they still to this day have not admitted, other than just trading him away in the Quinn Williams trade, that, hey, like, we just missed on Mozzie. Like, Mozzie was not it. They still think that guy had potential for years, and it was crazy to see. What's going on, 09 Max? He's got those boys were totally not interested in playing today. Terrible effort against a trash Giants team. Totally agree with you. At times, it just seemed like that they were ready to get out of there, and it seemed like maybe some phone calls were made to try to get that higher draft pick, which at the end of the day, you're only ending up with from 13 to 12 is what it looks like. The Dolphins got beat, so you're not going to fall to 11 here.
Yeah, the defense looked as bad today as it's looked in the last 6 weeks, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They just could not play ad lib football. And that's all the Giants have due to, Jackson Dart. He's just a running gun, make something work, try anything. And, they can barely do stuff they're assigned to do. So yeah, playing backyard football is not going to work at all because there's just not enough talent outside of Jadeveon Clowney, Quinnen Williams, and Kenny Clark. I don't care. As far as the guys that were on the field today, I don't care who comes back, man. I really don't.
Yeah, and we're totally going to get into that as soon as we get done with reviewing these players and all that, but we'll have some big questions to answer because I'm looking at the list now, and we have our own list here. You're going to have Donovan Wilson, Kenneth Murray, Dante Flower, George Pickens, Jalen Tolbert, Clowney, Javonte Williams, Sam Williams, Brock Hoffman, Adeniji, CJ Goodwin, Robert Jones, Payne. So we got a lot of free agent guys who came in on 1-year deals or are coming to the end of their deals right now, being tenured Cowboys, and trying to figure out what we're going to do at these positions. So yeah, man, it'll be definitely interesting. So, but yeah, man, let's get right into that depth chart if you have it ready. If not, we got some comments here. Max has got the boys need a real backup quarterback. Yeah, when it comes to Joe Milton, I'll kind of answer on that. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, you're rolling with Dak Prescott. If Dak goes down, this team's probably not going to get very far. And with Joe Milton, he's just going to need time and reps, real game reps. Everyone can practice all they want. They can get those scrimmage reps and those preseason reps, but you don't really get to hone and tune your skill until you're, playing 16 games for a couple years. And that's why they give these guys who are on rookie deals a long time, or at least that's my opinion.
Yeah. It's just like Slater just said, it just takes time. He hasn't had a lot of opportunity to play on any team that he's been on. He's obviously got some raw talent. You can see that get displayed when he does get out there to take snaps. Great arm. He can move. He's mobile. He's strong. It's just going to be a matter of taking the first team reps, meshing with the team, and getting more engaged with the scheme. And that's just something that happens through time and position, And the longer he's here, the better he'll be able to come in and play when he gets opportunities to start.
No, for sure. So, all
right. So you want me to kick off this? Where are we dealing with tonight? Let's see. Let's look at this depth chart real quick.
I think you're starting off with everyone's favorite linebacker.
Sam linebackers. Yeah, we're going to do Sam linebackers tonight. Let me add this to the stage real quick. All right. So as we continue here, we're going to go ahead and finish the positions that we initially started. So I'll be doing Sam linebackers tonight, and then Slater will do what he's got remaining for the defensive backs. And we're going to kick it off with our main man, the fearsome Kenneth Murray Jr. And, just before I start this, how did you feel about his level of play tonight? Did he do anything that says, man, we were wrong about Kenneth Murray Jr.?
No, not at all. I didn't see anything that personally, kind of, what's funny, and then people point this out on Twitter is, I'm sorry, not Twitter, but X now. I get so used to calling it Twitter. But one of the things that's crazy is Quinn Williams gets pulled out the game for the 15-yard penalty he causes. Kenneth Murray gets that 15-yard penalty, and, I get it. It wasn't like crazy, but still you're extending the arms, you're out of bounds, and you let go and all that. But it's just like, they just refuse to play him. And I haven't really looked at the snap counts from today, but I don't understand. It's like does Kenneth Murray know something on Matt Eberflus that we don't know? Is there a reason why, like at this point, that when you're down the way you were down in that game and you're getting embarrassed by Jackson Dart and all that and the Giants team, that there's any reason why we don't play Logan Wilson just to figure out what's going on? I mean, I would rather see Logan Wilson get embarrassed and look bad or anything like that and know what I'm getting out of him rather than just be unknown. I hate not knowing. Like I got to know, So
here's my honest opinion on that. I think it's like this. I think the front office wanted to bring in Logan Wilson, because he was available. He wanted out of Cincinnati. He was an opportunity, and they grabbed him. It was very clear that Kenneth Murray Jr. and Jack Sanborn came in with Matt Eberflus, who is on the hot seat, and those are his guys. He's a linebacker guru, and those are the linebackers he chose to rock with this season. Now, if he starts to have trouble during the season and his reputation's taking shots and he's being called out for the defense not performing well, and the linebackers play is reflecting of that, if he were to turn around and say, okay, my linebackers are not playing well enough, all that would do was confirm what everybody is thinking about him as a defensive coordinator. So I think for him, it's probably smart to keep the guys he's backing in and stand behind them, because you're just opening the door to say you were wrong or to admit fault and expose yourself if your job's already being threatened. So It's like, why not just ride with the guys that got me here, whether it's good or bad, and instead of admitting that I made a mistake or that I didn't do enough quality control and the candidates I brought onto the team. That's the only reason I can think that he would stand behind Kenneth Murray Jr. and continue to let him go out there and take primary snaps.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's pretty wild. So, all right. Go ahead.
They're top two people I want to get rid of. And it's crazy. I'd rather see Jerry Jones stay as GM, which we really don't have much of a choice on that. But if I had if you're like, hey, would you rather get rid of Jerry Jones as a GM or Matt Eberflus and Kenneth Murray? I'm more to tell you that I want to get rid of Matt Eberflus and Kenneth Murray more as of this moment.
I can agree with that. Yeah, the way it's gone and what we're seeing. All right, so his overall grade, Kenneth Murray Jr.'s grade for this year is 40.1, which makes him 82nd out of 87 linebackers. He did take 849 snaps this year, which is 35th out of 180. All right, so high volume there. Participated a lot. And with those snaps, he recorded 55 solo tackles, 29 assists, 27 stops, 11 missed tackles, and 0 forced fumbles, no interceptions, no turnovers of any kind. So this is all on, we're going to do run defense. All right.
Okay.
So he had a strong pursuit volume in that, mediocre impact as far as the production with 27 stops. And then, 11 missed tackles is not great. He's 45th in linebackers with missed tackles. So that's in my opinion, that's kind of high. So what that means for him as a run defender is he's high activity, but he's not always the first man to the ball, and he's not very consistent when he makes tackles, right? So I wouldn't say it's real run disruption. It's more just like a cleanup guy. He's the second guy to the ball. He's always going to be there to help try to rip the ball out, but he's not going to be the one to identify the play, fill the gap, get into the backfield early, shed blocks and make plays. That's just not who he is, right? I think he's a little too aggressive when he's going downhill, and that causes him to miss being in the proper gaps on rundowns. He has a tendency to over pursue because he's trying to get somewhere too fast because he hasn't really identified what's going on. So he runs into a gap that's the wrong gap because the play hasn't finished developing and he's caught out of position, especially in that middle linebacker spot. We've seen him time and time again be moving, just not be moving where he needs to be. Right. I think he needs to spend a little bit more time keeping his eyes in the backfield and squaring up on a gap and making sure that he's in the right place. Right. So he's a little bit out of position on that most of the time. I give him an average as far as his run defense and what he provides. I think he's really physical. He's fast. He can be impactful, but I think we need to trade some of his efficiency for aggression there, as far as being in the right place and getting to where he needs to be in his gap assignment and making impactful plays instead of just being an over-the-top strafing cleanup linebacker. We need a playmaker at that position, especially if we're not going to have a pass rush, right? So maybe a little bit more ability there could have made a difference. I think he's at his best when he's allowed to just attack downhill freely without being assigned to anything specifically, which is just not something that's compatible with zone defense 9 times out of 10 and being a linebacker at all. So his coverage performance, his passer rating was a 99.2, which is actually one of the lower ones on the Dallas Cowboys team as far as linebackers are concerned. But the eye test for me is I just felt like he was constantly too soft in his zone as far as breaking up passes, being in the way, jumping up and knocking down balls. I mean, I just don't ever feel like – I feel like he got exposed way more than what that passer rating says he's allowed, right? I do not think his coverage is better than his reputation as a coverage linebacker, though. I think what we saw is what he is, because I think in his mind he's doing a great job, and that's even scarier. I don't think he holds up very well in zone drops or hook curls and seam carries. I think he struggles with match zone concepts quite a bit. He can use his speed to close throwing windows, but I think he needs to have a little bit more anticipation as to when that's going to happen. One of the key plays you and I remember was that 4th and 3 versus Carolina, where he was just, they had to have known that kind of a play was coming, and he did. He just hesitated and didn't get there quite in time, and they knew that, and that's why they were able to run that play. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to get exposed, right? Yeah. I don't think he's ideal for a true man coverage versus, your tight ends, especially your more elite tight ends. He's not going to be very good with extended vertical routes. I give his coverage below average, man. He's a liability, and I don't think he's someone that necessarily needs to stay on the field for all the passing downs. But with some work, he could end up being, a team-friendly scheme coverage kind of defender.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment before I move into his blitz package?
I got lots of comments about Kenneth Murray.
Okay, well let me finish this up, and then we'll
Yeah, no, finish what you got.
We'll draw in quarter. All right. So as a blitzer, I think he actually has a little bit of value as a pure blitzer. He had 10 total pressures, and he had 1 sack. And this if you're listening to the breakdown here, he can get there fast, and he has good closing speed, and he's aggressive when he tackles. If all he knows he has to do is get into the backfield and be disruptive, he can do that. He's got burst, he's got timing. He's not the best with reading anticipation, and he can get through gaps. But if he has assignments and boxes he has to check before he does those things, neither thing is going to happen. He's not going to cover well, and he's not going to blitz well, because he's got to process everything he's supposed to do with his assignment in coverage before he can get to the point. And that's what causes him to be middling most of the time. But as a blitzer, I give him above average. He's a useful weapon in pressure packages, and he can add a little bit of disruption on run defense. But as a coverage linebacker all around every down, it's not very good. So I think the projection for him, I think his best role, wherever he ends up, whether he's back here or he moves on, he is a better Will or Mike linebacker than a Sam linebacker. and he has to be an attacking linebacker. He's not a coverage linebacker at all. He'll be good in early downs, especially on heavy run teams, and some sub packages for like NASCAR packages for pressure and things like that. I think you're going to maximize his strengths when he's kept clean and used in movement-based schemes. So needs to work on tackle efficiency and controlling his pursuit angles and reading play a little bit better. So that's where we're at on him. So with that being said, I'm going to have to give Mr. Kenneth Murray Jr.
Oh, we got the first F on our depth chart so far.
Yep, 100%.
Look, before I get into this, let me go full screen here.
Sure.
Chat, tell me how y'all feel about Kenneth Murray. Are we exaggerating? Maybe is Mike here, just a Kenneth Murray hater? Is he just lying to us? I mean, is he just too far out there? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm 100% on board with what he said. But chat, seriously, while I kind of go through this rant here about Kenneth Murray, so I can let it off my chest, get it off of me, because this season, I love linebacker film. That's what I'm no pro football athlete by no chance, but that's what I played in high school. It's a lot of I watched a lot of linebacker film. That's the kind of thing I did. It just seems like he was hesitant. It seems like Kenneth Murray was, didn't know what was going on. And I'm sure the guy watched film. I'm not saying by no means this is a judge on his work ethic and all that, but what he's putting on the field was not represented with maybe what they were talking about behind the scenes. When we talked about it last episode, Matt Eberflus talks about how this guy got multiple, game balls and he's a great leader and all that, but the film wasn't showing it. I'm not seeing Kenneth Murray make these big impact plays. I'm just trying to figure out what is going on between both of these guys, or not both of these guys, just between Eberflus and Murray. Why this bond between them was so special? Was it because they lost Sanborn, and so Eberflus was trying to hold on to someone else that he can rely on to do what he was wanting to do, or not change things on the field? Kenneth Murray, like you said, you called it out. I think he was definitely way too soft in some of these zone coverages. It seems like he was always too far forward, and that's what he may be asked to do. And maybe that's on the safety at that point. But when you're watching the film, it always seems like that he's the one always turning around going, uh-oh, and then he's chasing, He is a great blitzer, and he's great at getting pressures because that's what he is. He's a speedy linebacker. I think I remember coming out of college from Oklahoma, he was very fast. He's very good at getting those pressures. The only other thing that I have for Kenneth Murray, and it's the play that I dread to watch every time, is the play against the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's like their second and goal, third and goal, or whatever it is.
Goal line.
And it seems like it happened multiple times, but he's on the right side of the line, or the right side. If you're the linebacker facing the O-line, he's going towards the right side to that B gap, and the ball is coming to his left through the B gap on that side. And it's like, where are you going? Why are we guessing? If you're not sure what's going on, then we need to figure out who we need to get on the field that's right. And maybe that's the difference between Logan Wilson and Kenneth Murray, and why Eberflus liked them. Or liked Kenneth Murray more was, Kenneth Murray had the speed. Logan Wilson doesn't have the speed. Logan Wilson has the IQ. Logan Wilson has the ability to get back and forth. But, Murray has speed, and I don't know. At the end of the day, let me put it this way. We trade a 6th-round pick for Kenneth Murray. It's an experiment. It was a trial. Obviously, this experiment hopefully is over. We don't try to come back and do this again. But they need to let him go. There's no point. You gave up a 6th-round pick for it. You're not losing nothing. Same way with Logan Wilson. You gave up a 7th-round pick. If they were to let him go, is it really going to hurt you? Are you really looking back saying, dang, like we really would need that draft pick?
Yep.
No. So, but yeah, that's Kenneth Murray for you.
Yeah, and I think you might have actually answered the question as to why. When your defense is a strainer, speed can help you a lot, because speed can stop running backs and quarterbacks from taking off into 20, 30-yard runs because you have a linebacker that can run them down. But if you have a linebacker who can diagnose a play and at least meet the running back or the quarterback at the line of scrimmage in the proper gap, That's just as good in my mind. I'd rather have a linebacker who's a little bit slower but can stand right in front of the quarterback's eyes and intimidate him out of the middle and make him not even want to throw into that area. Because then you can push everything out to your corners and your flats with your safeties. But I feel like that's what Logan Wilson's value was when they got him. And I just do not think it was utilized because Matt Eberflus wanted to stick with Kenneth Murray Jr. because if you're going to go down with the ship, and I think that's how that happened. But at the end of the day, one more comment on this whole defensive coordinator thing. This defense was so bad to watch.
You saw it today.
Yeah. Yes, we lost Micah Parsons, but you can't tell me that was your whole game plan, that you were riding everything on Micah Parsons, because we still did add good quality talent to this team beyond what you had with Micah Parsons. So as a defensive coordinator, there's no excuse for this utter failure of defense, this record-setting defense that never looked consistent at any point in time until the games where the guys were just playing out of pure pride and heart because, their families are watching. These are the holiday games they played versus the Eagles. Those are personal games. They showed up on those games and gave their best for themselves and their teammates, not for the coach. That's the problem. When it was play for the coach, it didn't happen. When it was play for each other, it happened.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, why would you want to keep a defensive coordinator no matter what situation you're in that gives over 500 points for the season? That's averaging 30. If you were watching the game today, they put up a little graphic for you that said Dallas defense 30.2 or whatever per game, and then the rest of the NFL is like 20.1, and you're like, how can you be off by like 10 points? I mean, it's ridiculous. Even when I've already called out to it multiple times. But even when you were winning games, you were still giving up 30 points. Your offense has just had to outduel people, and that's how you have had to live unless you were playing the Raiders. And even today, I thought maybe we would have one last kind of like kumbaya moment and we would, rally together and we would just put Jackson Dart and the Giants to bed and we would just move on and let Dak have the passing record and everything or passing season leader passer for the year. And instead, we decided to just let Jackson Dart put up 34 on us. And how many did that random quarterback from Commanders, John Johnson, or what's his name? Josh Johnson. He's been in the league for a whole
couple hundred yards. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Let's move on. I'm tired of talking about Kenneth Murray and Matty Blues.
So do you want me to finish out with this other Sam linebacker, Mr. Jack Sanborn, or do you want to do a DB real quick?
Finish it off, and then because I'm going to run through probably two of these guys, I'll run through two of them, three of them, and then, I got Trevon Diggs to talk about on mine, but we'll probably just not talk about him.
All right. So we got Jack Sanborn, who's a 6'2", 235-pound, 25-year-old linebacker with an overall grade this year of 56.3 with 229 snaps. Didn't play a lot. Didn't see much of him. I think both between injury and just complete lack of understanding what was going on that field. I'm sure that when you're playing in a defense that's bad and you're not super good at your position because you're young and inexperienced, that it only accentuates the shortcomings there. It only makes everybody look even worse. A decent player can hide on a talented defense, but, a below average player is going to get exposed time and time again. And I think both of our Sam linebackers fell victim to that this year, So, all right, on run defense, 23 solo tackles, 8 assists, 8 stops, and 7 missed tackles. He has a very high missed tackle rate compared to the amount of snaps he took, which was atrocious. All right, so what this means for him as a tackler in his run defense, it's limited and inconsistent. Shows he can in plays near the line, but not very often, right? So he can do his job, but he's not going to be someone who's going to do it consistently. And that's kind of the whole point of being a linebacker, right?
Yep.
I think from the little bit of film that I watched on him, I think when he's forced to move laterally and tackle in space, he's no good, right? He has a lot of effort. He's a high effort guy, but his range is limited. His effectiveness in range along the defensive line is weak. I think he's best used as a special teams guy a little bit further down the chart. Maybe you can find a special place for him in some package, but at this point, Jack Sanborn just does not look like a starting NFL linebacker, right? So run defense, way below average. His coverage is not much better. 107.3 as a pass rating allowed. He's a liability when he gets tested more often than even Kenneth Murray Jr. He struggles with route recognition. He struggles with closing speed underneath. His best attributes in coverage is short zone drops, spot coverage with help from a safety over the top. The offense will look for this guy, and they did, and he was exposed that way. So, again, coverage verdict, below average. He needs protection as a linebacker, and it should be the opposite way. Your linebackers should be protecting the defensive backs and the safeties. He is not a viable linebacker for every down coverage at all.
Yeah.
As a blitzer, one total pressure, no sacks, doesn't have the speed and quickness to even be a blitzer. This is purely a depth guy. I think his best role is, again, special teams, short yardage depth, goal line snaps, injury insurance. I mean, I know it sounds terrible and I'm being harsh, but that's just the truth of it.
No.
He has to be protected from coverage and used sparingly in like sub packages and categorically assigned to do what he can do for your team. So again, with Sanborn here, it's going to be another F grade.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it seemed like to start the year, we kind of saw what Matt Eberflus brought in was a guy who could call plays for him and someone who was familiar with his system, coming from Chicago and everything like that. And, it's the same thing that Mike Zimmer did last year with Eric Kendricks, right? You kind of bring in a guy who can kind of help bring some of the guys on the defense up to speed, kind of help, get some of the guys learn the tips and tricks of, the scheme and what Eberflus is trying to do, especially when you're kind of constructed to a short amount of time. And that's what I thought Jack Sanborn was brought in for. Obviously, we would expect him to play a little bit here and there. Him and Kenneth Murray were kind of the duo that going into the season that we were going to try to survive on until Overshown could come back, and we would get hope there. But Jack Sanborn just showed his ability is really anything between the guards, right? If it's coming down the hall between the guards, I think that's what he's good at. But outside of that, there's nothing special there. There's nothing that makes me want to keep him. There's nothing that makes me want to, make sure that he's on my team for next year. I just think he was purely on this team to help Matt Eberflus and, get this scheme going and get through training camp. And that's 100%. Just my assessment of it.
Yep, 100%. So can you go into the depth chart there for me and make that block red?
Yes, I will do that.
For the Sam linebackers.
So let me ask you this while I'm doing that. Out of all the linebackers here, what? Let me ask you this. We have our middle linebackers, we have our will linebackers, and we have our Sam linebackers.
Sure.
You and I offline have had conversations in the past, and, we'll get into this as we go through our defensive coordinator search if they do get rid of Eberflus and what kind of schemes we're looking for. But are you a fan of staying on this 3-4 scheme, or are you looking for maybe potentially switching to a 4-3 scheme? Or do I have that backwards? I think we're running
a 4-3 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least that's what was designated at the beginning of the year. And I definitely think with the current roster and what I'm seeing, this definitely needs to be a 3-4 defense because we've got a lot of guys that have speed as linebackers and are not good at coverage. So if we can keep our 3 defensive tackles out there, you put Kenny Clark over the center and you wing him out with Quinnen and Osa. You can rotate Sully and the rest of the guys in there. And then you just use these other defensive tackles and linebackers in that 3-4 scheme. I think we would have a lot more effect on the offensive line than the way we're doing it now. Because with like Demo, Maurice, Shamar, there's quite a bit of speed and ability to get to the pass rusher there. We got Houston out there. I mean, I just think we can make a lot better packages.
Yeah.
Than we can in this 4-3 traditional, especially if we're going to run the kind of zone coverage we're running defensively, because none of these guys were built for that. And I think that was kind of the plan. I think the concept was going to be, we'll run a 4-3. We'll have Micah blitzing every time they drop back, and we will have just enough speed to get to make tackles around the line of scrimmage on these short little passes that they're going to be able to get off because of the high amount of pressure Micah's going to put on them, right? And then when Micah gets removed from the equation, now we need a better DB level of play from these middle linebackers, because now it's going to be a more pass-centric focused defense trying to stop, the passing game instead of a short yardage. It's now moved into a mid to long range yardage kind of thing. And our linebacking core got exposed for that reason.
Yeah. Cool G in the chat, he's saying, well, what's up, good fellas in chat? And he said, let's go Cowboys. If you're just now joining us, cool. We're currently talking about, some of the depth chart stuff that we've been going through this series. And then on top of that, Matt Eberflus and Kenneth Murray, man, tell us in the chat how you feel about him, or maybe how you feel about what you saw today from today's game, man. Let's talk about it here. But yeah, no, to continue what you were talking about there, Mike, I think scheme wise, I think that's a good idea. And I think it's definitely going to be fun to dive into. Hopefully, if we get rid of Matt Eberflus in this 10 to 12 day timeline. If we do not get rid of Matt Eberflus, then we got to somehow construct, magic ASAP. And Cool G adds on here, both of them need to go ASAP. I think we're both on board here.
Yes, Trevon Diggs did play today, and I think like one of the first times the ball was thrown his way, he picked up right where he left off in Dallas. He was 10 yards off the ball playing soft coverage, and then was the second guy to come up and do a cleanup tackle on the receiver. So didn't see anything that made me feel any kind of regret or remorse for Trevon being a Packer.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing crazy today. I'm sure if he would have got an interception or anything like that, we would have seen it on the timelines today. So, yeah, we'll see what happens for him next week.
The scary thing about this, we're looking at this depth chart, Slater, and we have no depth. So defensively, it's not even a depth chart. Defensively, yeah, it's just one or two guys in each position. We have no depth. We've got guys all over this thing that are 1-year contract guys that, we may be forced into bringing back, because you can't just cut 8 people off your squad and find a whole new 8 guys plus free agents and draft. I mean, it's just too much to try to do, so it's like we have to be very thorough as we look at this, and so does the Dallas Cowboy front office, as to how they're going to manage this mess that they've created through neglect over the past 4 years. Because as much as we may not like it, a lot of these guys are probably going to be back on the team next year in some capacity.
Yeah, and even like here, I'm gonna do this. Let me do this real quick. Let's do this. I'm gonna share our little depth chart screen here, and what I want to show our chat here is just even in the positions that we've gone over so far. So starting with your linebackers, look at how we're acquiring this talent. So here we got Logan Wilson. He was acquired via trade, right? That was a 7th round pick. All right, Shamir James, we drafted him with a 5th round pick. And then you go look at Kenneth Murray. And again, I just talked about earlier when we were talking about him, we acquired him with a 6th round pick. And then Jack Sanborn was signed in free agency after we had no free agency. It's not like everyone was like, oh, here's my bidding card for Jack Sanborn. I need him ASAP. You know, we were just like, he's a scrap. Let's pick him up. Right. And then scroll down to my safeties here that I did the other day. And, you know, corners here, I'll talk about a little bit here. Even on the go up just a little, show the safeties, the strong safeties too. Here, right? Donovan Wilson, he's been on the team for a long time. We talked about in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, I think in our first one, he was a uphill, downhill kind of guy, you know, climbed up, climbed down the roster. But here we are, 6th round pick. Marquise Bell, undrafted free agent. He's a great depth guy, you know, can play linebacker, safety, special teams guy. And then Malik Hooker here. We got him in free agency in 2021. He played great, but his play has gone downhill since as he's approaching higher age, right? Undrafted free agent Elijah Clark, and then undrafted free agent right there with Wanye Thomas. You're starting to see this trend as we go through this depth chart, and that's why we're putting it the way we are, is we're trying to show to only our viewers and to us ourselves is that look at the neglect that we've put on this defensive side, and you know, showing that this is why we're struggling. This isn't something that like in 1 year after Dan Quinn leaves, it's all going downhill. Dan Quinn, I mean, when you're looking at now, he's done a pretty good job with what the talent was there and what was being left for him. And when we go do the offense, you're going to see all kinds of 1st round picks, you know, 2nd round picks, guys that were acquired via trade, like George Pickens with a 3rd round pick. And you're going to see why we have such a great offense and a very bad defense. But yeah, sorry. I just wanted to show why we're doing this and why we're wanting to break it down the way we are.
Yeah, because it's intimidating and it's scary to think about because it's like you have to re-sign the players you want to keep both offensively and defensively, and then you have to self-evaluate, determine which positions you are required to improve in, and then you still got to go out and find these guys, however you do it, free agency, drafting, trading. And there's just a lot of work to be done. And we're rudderless. We don't even know what direction we're heading because we do not have a defensive coordinator that the defense can get behind and play for. So a lot of work to do. But yeah, Slater said it best, man. Our defense is built on back of the half draft, roll the dice, free agent, didn't get drafted guys. And that's okay for depth. You're going to find a diamond in the rough occasionally. But for a starting squad, that is just not adequate. Yeah. We got exposed all year long. I'm surprised we won 7 games. I really am.
Yeah, and that's all because our offense outdueled their offense. And at the end of the day, I mean, like we said earlier, you only won games because even though you gave up 30 points, your offense put up 40, right? I mean, it's the only way you're winning. And one of the things I was also going to mention is – think about what's happened in the past 2 years. It's gone really downhill since we lost that wild card game against the Packers. And I'll get back on here like this. It's gone really downhill since we've lost that game to the Packers because in that as soon as that happened, Jerry Jones says, we're going all in. And it gets all the fans' excitement up. Yeah, man, we were the 2nd seed. We may lose Dan Quinn, but we'll get someone in the building. We'll get some more talent. We'll try to boost up our defense, and we won't let this happen again. So many crickets happened in that offseason that when we assigned Ezekiel Elliott back, just because why not?
Getting paid,
yeah, because he was getting paid off of his last contract, and you might as well bring him in on a minimum. That's the excitement we got that offseason. You brought in Eric Kendricks with Mike Zimmer, who really didn't coach the past couple of years before that, right?
I would have loved to have Eric Kendricks this year, brother.
Yeah. So, and it was, for real. We thought we had that, and now, but. Yeah. And then this upcoming, and then after Zimmer and all that, they tried to do right by adding more, but what's happening is they're not acquiring the talent the right way during the offseason. During that free agency period is what I'm really going to pick on here. Yes, Jerry got it right before the trade deadline and went and got Quinnen Williams. I think that was a great move. I think that was a guy that you're going to see be a big impact for years to come on this Dallas defense, and to replace what we lost in Micah Parsons in that star pass rush that we had going on and stopping the run too. I think Kenny Clark has been a great addition. Obviously, his name is always going to be riddled with the Micah Parsons trade, but luckily that's been eased off a little bit because of Quinnen Williams and using that 1st round pick that we had in next year's draft for him. But yeah, man, it's crazy when you're talking about all the neglect that we have on the defensive side, because your last first round pick, guys, was Mozzie Smith, and look where he's at now. Is he even on the Jets still? Did they cut him yet already? I mean, yeah, it's
He
crazy.
might be back next year. You better watch out. It's like Beetlejuice, man. You say his name too many times, come out the closet, man.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't you hit some of this depth chart cornerbacks for us here?
Yep, let's do it here. All right. So when I built this depth chart here, you'll have to be my scroller here. What we got? Okay. Yeah, here we go. We got Trevon Diggs, who's here first, but I'm going to skip over him. Obviously, as we know, he was a great all-pro corner that we had in 2021, 2022. Had the ACL injury in 2023, about 2 weeks into the season. And then 2024 kind of played, but that knee has never been the same since. Yeah, he can kind of be an NA. We can give him an F for, not being on the Cowboys anymore. He's not going to be somebody I'm going to go to.
F for farewell.
Yeah, F for farewell is a great call right there. So I'm not going to go too deep into him. I was really kind of excited to talk about him and what his future may have been like in Dallas, but unfortunately, he's in Green Bay now, which is also working out for the best too, right? He hasn't been the same player since tearing that ACL and also redoing knee surgery multiple times. So we're going to start with Traquise Bridges, all right? And real quick.
So this is our 25-year-old rookie who was signed off the practice squad this year.
Yeah. So Traquise Bridges, he's a 25-year-old, like you just said, who was acquired by the Dallas Cowboys this past training camp, acquiring him off of signing him off of a practice squad before the season started. So he wasn't somebody who was really out there in the preseason games, if I'm not mistaken. I remember this right, but we picked him up after people made their cuts off of their last preseason game rosters.
Yep. It was when we realized that we weren't going to have the full amount of depth we were going to need. I think Deron Bland was still having some trouble. And, yeah, there was a reason. I think almost our entire secondary was on IR for the most part. So it was just some guys we picked up to help fill out the roster.
Yeah, because you had Kalen Carson out at the time. You had Josh Butler out at the time. So you had a lot of depth that was missing.
Yeah.
Bland. Yeah, Bland. And there was a lot of question marks around Trevon, too, at the time. And then he, showed up and played week 1. But anyways, Bridges was selected by the Los Angeles Chargers in the 7th round, where he previously played at Oregon and then his last year at Florida. At his height, 6'2", and a weight of 200 pounds, his draft profile was highly known for his size and at the cornerback position. 6'2" is a very good height to have there. And he also has a really good reach. I didn't get his exact number for his reach, and I need to get that, but he has a really good reach. If you watch him play, his reach is something special there. For Dallas this past season, he served as a backup and the special teams guy. Bridges, at least for this season, will be known for his interception, actually, at the beginning of the Broncos game. If anyone remembers that, he had that first pick right out the gate and, kind of set off that momentum where Dallas fans may have had some excitement. Could we walk in the mile high and win, right? Looking at PFF, they grade him as an overall of a 48.1 with only 192 snaps, where he recorded 15 solo tackles and allowed 15 receptions with 13.9 yards per reception. And this was all before today's game here too, so I can add that in later. But Bridges allowed a passer rating of 112.5, which is actually surprisingly lower than the safety so far. So as I'm going through this has actually been the lowest passer rating allowed by one of our DBs so far, which is still not good, but it's the lowest. Bridges, who is still under contract till 2029, will be someone I expect to be around next year, maybe competing for snaps at corner, but he's definitely a project guy. Some of the things I noticed about him is he'll need to work on his down the field skills, and I kind of saw it today. When he's trailing a receiver down the field, he gets his hands on the guy. He gets his hands on the guy a little bit too much, which can draw those penalties and those flags. That can cause some big down the field plays for the offense or give them the momentum to keep going on their drives. Another thing is when going back and watching the Commanders game where he played a lot of snaps, his IQ is great. His ability to work in that zone scheme that Eberflus provided for them. He was very good at passing people off and then being able to help or realize when the quarterback's dropping back and letting go that ball. One of the plays I called out is there was a crosser going on like this, and as he passes off the one guy going across the field to another guy, he realizes the quarterback's about to dump it off to the guy going into the more of the flats area than midfield, and he immediately drops off the guy in the midfield and goes straight to the flats to help make that tackle as the safety comes over the top of him, right? So his IQ is great. I think he's definitely just going to need to work on that one-on-one skill, those go routes and stuff, trying to keep their hands off of him or trying to find a way to not get called out as well because of his reach. He just has such a long reach that when he's fully extended, those refs are going to see his hands on that receiver. Double moves do hurt him as well, and those are usually down the field routes. Overall, he's a low money contract guy, obviously being a 7th-round pick and picking him up for absolutely nothing. I think he's earned a chance to be on this roster going into this offseason and at least fighting at training camp. What comes out of training camp, those kind of guys are year-to-year players. They have to earn it every training camp. We'll see how it goes, but his overall grade, I'm going to give him a C. I mean, for what he showed in the snaps that he got, I saw the potential, and I see why Dallas picked him up to start the season, especially because he didn't have no training camp, no preseason games with him. He did pretty well overall. How do you feel about Bridges? Is that kind of where you're at with him?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of that. I think Tre'Quez Bridges is a rookie that's got an upside. I think he played pretty well, and he did get opportunities. I know the play you're talking about where they ended up dumping it off to that running back. It was kind of like a soft pick, and he caught on to what was going on, and he went ahead and released his guy and came in and made that tackle. It was really nice to see because it shows that the IQ is there. So I would rather take an unproven guy who's trainable and is learning and is actually identifying things like that than a guy who's been here for 4 years and is still not making an impact. I think he has an upside. And one of the things you mentioned, yes, he is very handsy, but he's a tall, long cornerback.
Yep.
And being handsy tells me that, one, he's keeping up with the wide receiver, because if you can put your hands on the receiver, that means you're with him step for step. And that tells me he can maintain coverage, which is a lot more than what some of them have provided this year. So the downfall to that is usually if you got long arms and you're tall and rangy, you've got long legs, which takes you a little bit longer to get out of breaks. So he's just going to have to get really, really good at utilizing leverage inside or outside, depending on what he's trying to defend and what kind of play or route is being ran against him.
Yeah.
But he's a rookie, couple years with some consistent play in a training camp and a good coach, and you may find yourself something there. So
he reminds me of what Chicago's got, and I got to do the size comparison, but on top of my head while we're talking about is Nashawn Wright, who Al Harris has had a great season with, that length and all that. I think if we had Al Harris here, I think he could make something out of him. Now, let me get this straight for everybody here. He is not somebody who I'm looking to say next year start right across from Deron Bland. This is a guy that if you were having a really successful team, and let's say he's like your third or fourth string corner or whatever, it may be fourth or fifth is where I'm more lean towards. He's somebody that you would develop and be a project guy over the years and do a lot of special team snaps. I do not need to see him as my starting corner across Deron. And that's not saying that he doesn't have the ability to do it. I just don't think he's the solution going into like next year saying he's my cornerback too. So.
It's fair.
But
what grade are we giving Tre'Quez, sir?
We given him an overall grade of a C.
All right.
And let's see who we got next. We got Ballantyne. I'm going to skip over Ballantyne, honestly. I'll just kind of give y'all a quick summary on him. I mean, he was a guy that we brought in the middle of the season. I think the only reason why he's really on our roster is because, again, we had guys hurt like Diggs at some point, and then you still had Butler, Kalen Carson out at times. He's a long-term vet kind of guy. He's definitely someone who's been around the league, and he's been someone who's had veteran experience. And I think they brought him in to kind of help out with just depth and bring somebody off of free agency to do it. But I'll talk about Josh Butler though. Let's talk about Josh Butler because this is interesting. Josh Butler is a 6 foot, 184-pound cornerback, right? Who Dallas acquired during the 2023 season and is someone who went undrafted in 2020. Josh Butler, for people, and I didn't know this when looking, I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't realize he was this old. He's age 29. He hasn't played much NFL football, right? He went undrafted in 2020. And he played a lot of UFL football for the Michigan Panthers, and then a year in a spring league in 2021. Josh Butler has been cut twice from the Cowboys and signed to their practice squad in 2023 and 2024. So he's been around the team for a while. Due to all the injuries in the secondary, Josh Butler actually got his chance in 2024, which is really what I'm going to be talking about, because this year he didn't play a single snap until today, right? He got his chance to play 5 games when he was promoted to the active roster in November 2024. In those 5 games, Butler recorded 5 pass deflections, a sack, and 21 combined tackles. And I thought he looked really good during that time. He seemed somebody who could stay in a receiver's hip pocket, was very good at those man coverage kind of plays. Unfortunately for Josh Butler, what happened to him last year was he tore his ACL in Week 13 against the New York Giants. Josh Butler was not able to play a game again, like I said, in 2025, except for the one game today. And even today, you really didn't get to see that many snaps of him. You really saw mainly Kalen Carson and Trevon Bridges. And so we'll have to see what's going to happen with him. But the interesting part is he's going to be approaching the age 30, right? This is a guy who's been on your team for a couple of years, but he's older, right? He missed out on a whole year this year. And I know there's been fans who wanted to see him play more this year, and unfortunately he wasn't able to get there. But what he does have is a ERFA tag on him. And for people who don't know what an EFR or ERFA tag is, it's an exclusive rights free agent, which is a player with fewer than 3 occurred seasons whose contract has expired. Their original team can retain them by offering a minimum salary tender, preventing the player from negotiating with other teams. But if no tender is offered, the player becomes a standard unrestricted free agent, UFA. So this, if Dallas decides to bring him back, it'll be on a minimum deal. I don't think it hurts to bring him back on the minimum deal to see what he may provide in training camp. Again, kind of a depth / special teams guy. But as he's approaching age 30, he's really going to have to stay healthy and stay on the field to be able to keep playing NFL football. For this year, it's an NA. I mean, we didn't get to see Josh Butler at all. So it's hard to give him a grade for what I didn't see. If I was going to give him a grade in 2024, I would have given him a C and said that, he showed very good promise and somebody who could have helped us out this year when it came to the depth issues we were having at corner. But it's hard to tell when you don't play, right?
Yeah. So looking at the depth chart after we finished your linebacker coverage there, I mean, that sums everything up. I mean, Trevon Diggs was a no-show this year, and now he's gone. Trevon Bridges is, a practice squad rookie, and then we got a journeyman veteran in Corey Ballantyne. Yep. And then we've got a Josh Butler who has been injured, only has a couple years experience, and is a free agent that is almost 30 years old. And that's our depth at cornerback. I mean, what more can we say? And that's why your defense is struggling. And it's like, who can fix that? What magic spell can someone cast to repair that kind of defensive neglect?
Yeah. I agree. And that's where we're seeing these issues. That's why it's all led to this. Personally, I've never sat down and broke it down like this, but the more and more we keep breaking down these players, breaking down what's going on, it's hard to say it's all Eberflus's fault. I'm going to say like 95% of it is, but 5% of it has been true neglect by this front office on trying to get that talent in the building. They lived off of Trevon Diggs' hope and Deron Bland's one awesome year and Micah Parsons to just get bailed out the whole entire time. And it now it's like hit a wall. You can't do it no more.
Yeah. I mean, outside of Demo, Trevon Diggs was the only defensive player we drafted that's still on the team in the 3rd round or higher.
Yeah, I think you've got Ezaraku from this.
Yeah, there's Ezaraku and Maurice, but I'm talking outside the defensive line. So if we're just looking at linebackers and DBs,
yeah,
Trevon was the last truly talented baseline player that we had left on the roster. And then, we got Chavon Rebel, who probably would have been a early 2nd round pick had he not been injured.
Yeah.
But that's it. Outside of that, all of our prestigious talent is gone. So it's pretty wild. And that's why we wanted to do this for those that are watching. Everybody's already talking about draft, and we've repeated this a couple of times. We can't talk about draft yet. We can't even talk about free agency yet. We got to talk about what we want to define and identify with as a defense. And we need to establish who that leader is going to be so we know what direction we need to go in. And then, of course, you have to evaluate what you already have so you know what you need to get. Yeah. We'll keep rolling through this. We'll finish up the defense soon, and then we'll move into the offense, which should be a lot more fun to do. A lot more positives there. A lot more good things to talk about. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and just to maybe people in the chat have a different perspective, but it's crazy to look at it all. And I really hope that, and I really hope, like, I'm gonna pull this up here. I really hope Cool G is not right here. Right, this is not the offseason for Jerry and Steven to get those low level free agents. We cannot do that this offseason. If we do that this offseason, guys, we're setting ourselves up for failure again. I hate to say it, but the numbers that our offense put up this year, I don't expect the exact same numbers next year. I expect at least a very good production year, but instead of being top 3, I expect it to be like top 6, right? We kind of, and it's not because we're good. Now, it all depends, right? I'm talking about bringing the exact same offense back. I'm talking about bringing Javonte back, George Pickens and all that. Yeah. But I expect to be, more on top 6 now because people are going to figure us out. They're going to, get that Brian Schottenheimer scheme a little bit. They're going to know how to kind of play against it, and they're going to figure out, well, this works well, this doesn't work well. Keep them out the play action. Make sure they can't run the ball well because Dak Prescott's phenomenal in the play action, and if the run's set up, then he can drop dimes on us all day. But this is not the offseason to go get those low-level free agents. You can't do it. And if you do, then the whole fan base, because now the whole fan base is honest and truthful about it. They know there's no hope.
Yep. We're here to educate. That's why we're doing this. So everybody knows this is what's up. I agree with you. They cannot mess around. Get on task. Sign the guys we need to produce on the field offensively. They're already there. You just take them into a room, open the bank, grab a pen, boom, solid. And then everything else needs to go towards the defense from now through the draft. You can change this defense with 4 really solid guys. You can. You just need one at each level. You need a pass rusher. You need a good partner to put with Overshown. That may be Logan Wilson. It could be Shamar James. You go grab a veteran safety and a veteran cornerback, and you can cook with that. And that's what it's going to take. They just have to be smart.
Yeah, they just got to go find some mid-level to higher talent. It just can't be that low. It just can't be, let's go trade a 6th-round pick for, for some guy who's going to be cut. Or he was a former first-round pick, because he was a former first-round pick, he still has that potential. It doesn't work out. We need to go
grab somebody's Mozzie.
Yeah, we just need to go get that proven talent, and even if it's not, like A+ at every position, if you can get to B- C+ at every position, I like our chances a lot better than D's and F across the board.
Under the right coach, 100%.
So, yeah, right, man.
Got any questions from the chat? Or are we going to wrap this thing up?
None so far, but chat, if you got any questions, man, let's throw them in here. Let's have a little Q&A, and if not, man, we'll get out of here. And then next time I think I'm going to do the other cornerbacks with Deron Bland and all that. And then
we'll start moving into defensive ends and tackles on defense.
Yeah, man, it's definitely been fun. Is there anything different that maybe y'all want to see or anything like that? Just let us know.
Please like and subscribe. Always leave a question. We'll be happy to entertain that, answer questions, have discussions. Outside of that,
yeah, I'll give it a minute here. We'll see if anyone's typing anything up. If not, then we'll wrap it up. But whew, this is crazy. Jackson Dart.
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad we lost today because there's a big difference between pick 11 or 12 and pick 19. Huge difference. You can make moves from 11 to 9, 8, 7. Yeah. You can't go from 9 to 10. So I definitely think that really helped us, even though it was disgusting to watch us get beat by the Giants and lose our streak against them. It's just the way it goes sometimes. It's unfortunate. But also the defense looked atrocious, which is also a plus, So hopefully it all pays off the right way.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this while we're sitting here waiting on the chat. Do you still feel confident that Eberflus is gone?
I do feel.
Are you shaking at all?
Dude, I feel highly confident still that he's going to be gone. The only thing that scares me is why they give this timeline that I'm seeing on Twitter of this 10 to 12 day timeline of like, hey, we need 10 to 12 days to decide, do exit process and fully evaluate. I'm like, I don't need 10 to 12 days to figure this out. Hey, Monday, when you go up to the gate and you swipe your key card and it don't work, I don't even got to tell you. If your key card don't work, don't show up. Just turn around and go home.
Yeah, just stop paying him. He'll figure it out.
So here's a fun little stat for you. Quinnen Williams finished the season with more interceptions than the New York Jets. The New York Jets are the first team in NFL history to not record an interception the whole season. And it's kind of ironic because their head coach is a cornerback.
I think they're the first team to record 2 fake punts on the same drive.
Did they really? Did they do that today?
No,
I did not see that.
They did that last week, man. 2 fake punts on the same drive.
Yeah, but all right, guys. Well, we'll let y'all go. If y'all got anything, just leave it in the comments, chats. Come hit us up on Twitter and kind of send us a message. We'll be more than happy to answer it. But until next time, man. This is Cowboys Gameplan.